Ahoy everyone, it is Jeff, aka Scummer. Welcome back to History with Scummer. Now I haven't uploaded on this channel for a little while actually. Apologies for that. But I thought I'd sit down and just talk for a few minutes about Ridley Scott's Napoleon. And I went to see this film yesterday, and I have thoughts. So let me begin by just reiterating a couple of things. One, I'm not a historian. I just have I have an interest in history, but I am not a historian. I'm not academically trained whatsoever. B, I'm not really a film critic either. I do, collaborate on a show that does some media analysis, but I'm not really a film critic. Second of all, if you haven't seen this movie yet, there's probably going to be some spoilers in this. Now, I realise I'm probably a little late to the party with this, and a lot of people have done reviews and their thoughts, given their thoughts on this, including a lot of actual historians who really do know what they're talking about, more so than me. Now, I've been trying to stay away from them because I wanted to go and, I've been trying to ignore the reviews and say, A, because I didn't want spoilers, and B, because, I didn't want put my perceptions of what this movie was going to be going in. Now, I had some fears about this movie because it's Ridley Scott. And it's a bit of a mixed bag with Ridley Scott when it comes to historical epics. Of course, famously, the Gladiator, which, obviously, I thought was a very enjoyable movie. Obviously, with all of these, there's going to be massive inaccuracies, but, Ridley Scott's got some interesting form of historical epics. When we look at things like Kingdom of Heaven, which I've felt was a big letdown, and people want to go back further, 1492 Conquest of Paradise, which was just horrible. I think just quite bad depiction of Columbus, in my opinion. That being said, I really, really wanted to like this movie. I was hoping this movie would be good. Disappointing is, yeah, disappointing is about the best thing I can say about this. I just felt this thing was, it just, to me, it missed the mark on everything to me, and I did not like the portrayal of Napoleon. And listen, I love Joaquin Phoenix as an actor, and I'm sure he was portraying Napoleon as was written in this, but it was the Napoleon that is written in this, I feel, is a big part of the problem. I'll come on to that in a bit. Now, I went in going with this thinking, I'm not going to comment on historical I was repeating myself, not going to critique historical accuracy, not going to critique historical accuracy, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to, I'm not going to get het up about things. But it got a bit too much. It got a bit too much. And the thing that just put it over the edge for me, and I don't even know why this particular instance was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, but I've been sitting through this movie a long time, trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I've been gradually losing patience with it. But it was the Battle of Waterloo, and now this particularly is based upon something that did happen with the Duke of Wellington's and the gunners, the artillery, the cannons, who mentioned at one point that they had Napoleon in their sights should they open fire, and Wellington sort of said no, that's not what. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's kind of not the done thing for commanders to do. In this movie is a British rifleman, and he's got a fucking telescopic sight on the Baker rifle. I'm sorry, I try to keep the swearing down as much as I can, but this, I don't know why that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and it was like the likelihood of a telescopic sight on a Baker rifle. I don't know. It was just the final straw for me, but and the whole, I think there was this the thing with this movie. I think really to do Napoleon justice, you could have had a trilogy of movies marking his rise, then his sort of his glory, it was rise throughout the revolutionary period, and into sort of the glory years when he becomes emperor, and you could finish up at somewhere like Austerlitz or something, and then you could have a third movie that could follow like the Russian campaign and Leipzig, and then obviously culminate with Waterloo and so on. You could do that, and I think it might have been better. Or alternatively, if you were just going to do one movie, I think it would have been better possibly to just concentrate on one particular area of Napoleon's life and try and tell the story from there. Whether it's one particular event or just a few months, I kind of like the Lincoln film did with Daniel Day-Lewis' Lincoln film, where it focused on the one thing. I'm not holding Lincoln up as a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination either, but I felt like in 2.5 hours here, it was just a bit of a mixed bag of, we're going from event to event, but there's no real focus on any of. There's things that could be done that are very important that barely get mentioned or are covered very briefly. And certain things are omitted altogether. For example, we get like a passing mention to the Italian campaign. We don't go there. Now, if we're really trying to tell the story of Napoleon, that's important. The Italian campaign is really. We get the Battle of Toulon. And again, I was cutting the movie some slack at this point. I was trying to not get too het up about, the depiction of the bombardment of the British fleet in Toulon in this movie. I was trying not to get a het up on things like that. But so we have Toulon, and then Italy's cut out altogether, and it's mentioned like in a sentence. That he was in Italy, but that part of Napoleon's life is would have been crucial to this. We do not see, we get Russia, but then at the end of the sort of, after the Russian campaign, we're sort of led to believe that then that his abdication comes straight after that. Leipzig, the Battle of the Nations isn't mentioned whatsoever. We forget that, Napoleon didn't just abdicate after Russia. He was fighting on for like a year and a half afterwards. The there's things like Leipzig, which again, very, very important things, some historical context that are not mentioned. Then, of course, we get to I mean, I think that if this film had a narrative in a way, it was kind of in a way about a lot of this was to do between the relationship between Napoleon and Josephine, which is a complicated relationship, and there's all sorts of things. And I think, even from what I've read of Napoleon, there was an element of him that sounded a little bit creepy. It could come off a little bit creepy, but this. But what we got in this movie was essentially incel cuckold Napoleon. It is what we got in this movie, and the whole of it was him pining for Josephine. I think the ultimate problem I have with this movie is that this movie, after a while, felt like a character assassination of Napoleon. There's nothing in this that I think really where we got any sense of why Napoleon was such a great military leader. Why, I mean, this man was a military genius, of likes of which, possibly the greatest military leader who ever lived. We don't sort of get how and why he inspired his armies to fight. We don't get anything really, or hardly anything ever, of Napoleon, the political leader, and and the important reform, important things like the Napoleonic Code that he introduced. It's just not mentioned. It got to a point, and I felt in a way we would get the way the film ends is we would look at a list of Napoleon's battles and just the amount of people who died on the various campaigns or whatever. So I don't know. Now, I don't know if this is Ridley Scott trying to do a takedown of the great man of history sort of narrative, which I don't have a problem with that, because I think there's a lot of issues with the great man of history thing, but I do think you could pick a better target than Napoleon, because I mean, I can see it in a way because Napoleon possibly could be seen as the embodiment of that great man of history myth, but at the same time, this is such an important historical figure, and but it doesn't even do it well. I mean, and if we're just going to go with Napoleon bad because he killed all these people, I mean, if we want to go into, I mean, could some mention be made of what he did at Jaffa? No, But again, the whole thing just felt. There was so much wrong with this, and I don't really want to go through it step by step, because I'd be here for hours. I would be here for hours going through the things with this. But what the characterization of Napoleon, and I'll say this: the actors in this deserved better than the material they were given to work with in this. They deserve better. And I'll say this: look, whatever your views on Napoleon are, where you think he's one of the great tyrants, or whether you think he is one of the great men of history, or one of the great tyrants, or both. It can be both can be true. whatever your particular view is, this movie I think was deeply, deeply unfair to the man, and it was. As I said, it felt like a character assassination of Napoleon, and it almost, it, I, f- it felt almost like a parody. Now I've got to say, I'm sort of like 24 hours out from having reviewed the film. I wanted to sit down and kind of collect my thoughts a little bit more about this, but the more and more I thought about it, it just I wasn't. It was not what I was hoping for out of a Napoleon biopic. I yeah. I mean, the few times where I think there's something in there's when they start going in, hinting at going somewhere interesting, it's never there long enough. And it just all seems like going from date to date, but missing out so much important stuff as well. Or when we're dealing with something important, it's covered very, very briefly. Um, I think this is about all I've got to say about it, to be honest. But it was deeply disappointing. There definitely are better on-screen depictions of Napoleon, and I'll say this as well: there are better depictions, even with limited budgets, of some of the actual battles during the Napoleonic Wars. And like I said, I'm trying not to, because I could sit here for another like 20 minutes just talking about the Battle of Waterloo scene in the fucking World War One trench warfare sort of or at least American Civil War era kind of trench warfare at the Battle of Waterloo. It was again a bit of just really, you know. um, there's been so much. I could recommend, I said, a 1970 film Waterloo. I think it's 1974 film Waterloo, which is on YouTube somewhere, or at least it was. I don't know if it's the, which which is a fantastic movie. It's fairly accurate too, but doesn't take away from the drama and the storytelling within this. I mean, there's been things on very low budgets that have done better depictions of some of the battles. I mean, you know, even like the Sharp TV series does a better job of well, actually, does a much better job of portraying battles from the Napoleonic, and with the budget that had compared to this, and this, oh, that's another thing. And just by the way, while we're on that, that's another thing. Spain doesn't even get mentioned once during this movie. When that, and when that was a big part of the amount of resources that were put in, into trying to hold Spain. Yeah, there's so much wrong. I just don't have the time, honestly. Unless I really wanted to sit and do like a point by 3 or 4 hour long stream and go through it point by point every fucking thing they got wrong in this movie. It was disappointing, deeply disappointing. I said I kind of felt going in though that I knew this could be a problem. I knew, because Ridley Scott's track records with historical biopics, with historical epics and so on. I did have my fears, but I really felt it couldn't be too bad. But I really think this was one of the worst depictions of this, and I know. I mean, I have heard that I haven't watched them yet. I'll probably will go and watch some of the reviews on them. I gather there's a couple of French historians who've done some very scathing reviews about this, and I'll just say this. I mean, yeah, it probably isn't the greatest thing to have a British director doing a French history, but it almost, especially if it feels as if Ridley Scott's got a bit of an axe to grind with this. It that's how it felt. It just, whatever he was trying to do with this, he didn't do well. Now, okay, I don't know what the director's cut is going to do with this, but even if you add another hour of footage to this, I don't know if that will make this thing even coherent or what. It was just you can sum it up with incel cuckold Napoleon pines for Josephine through 2.5 hours is kind of almost how I kind of feel about this movie. Okay, so that was my thoughts on Napoleon. So see you later. Salute.